Billionaire boss decides to visit his black cleaning lady's home and discovers something shocking. Ethan Miller, a 52-year-old billionaire and owner of luxury hotels in Los Angeles, lives surrounded by luxury but submerged in loneliness. Dawn streaks the Beverly Hills sky with shades of peach and gray. The panoramic glass on the top floor reflects the city like an aquarium of lights slowly fading out. Ethan runs on the treadmill, smartwatch vibrating on his wrist, and there's no music, only the sound of his own breathing and the cold air conditioning blowing. Citrus scent from the cleaning product, impeccable marble, expensive emptiness. His phone vibrates. A security team notification. Random bag check on the night shift findings. Nothing. Another message. Rumor of guest data leak. Ethan frowns. Automatic distrust. Skin still cool after the shower, suit made of noise-free. Fabric. Tie knot as precise as a sentence. In the hotel lobby, white flowers and mirrored floor. A line of cleaning staff stands still, bags open. A security guard rummages through intimate items in front of everyone. The operations manager, tense, tries to explain. Mr. Miller, it was just a precaution. Ethan interrupts, low voice, sharp. Precaution is not a spectacle. One of the employees is holding a grocery bag. Inside, bread, 2 yogurts, generic medicine. The guard lifts the items as if they were contraband. The woman blushes, embarrassed silence. The whispering among people cuts through the air. Give it back. Now, Ethan points, serious, and apologize. The guard swallows hard. Sorry. The employee keeps her eyes on the floor, hands trembling. Shock sets in among the front rows of staff. The manager tries to smile, awkward. Ethan turns his face, stern, office. Now, backstage, the walls lose their shine. The hallway smells of bleach and old coffee. The operations manager begins. Hour. Shrinkage rate went up 0.7%. The press is, Ethan shoots him a glare. And you thought public humiliation was a loss prevention strategy? I just wanted to show we're paying attention. You showed we're desperate. Ethan breathes shortly. Final warning. If it happens again, you can clean out your badge. The door opens and Julian Torres walks in, portfolio in one hand, look. Blending respect and courage. Press is at the door, Ethan. Video of a crying staff member over a bag search is already trending on TikTok. We need a human response before a legal one. Ethan clenches his jaw. What do you suggest? Damage control without punishing the innocent. Julian lowers his voice. And maybe look your staff in the eye. Looking people in the eye is expensive. Ethan wears his coldness like an overcoat. They always want something in return. Julian holds his gaze. It's not always money. The pause cuts deep. Outside, the city wakes up for real. Motorcycles, sirens, honking. The sun opens up like a ruthless spotlight. The 38th floor meeting room is a glass aquarium overlooking palm trees too perfect to be real. The screens show charts, bookings, guest notes. A photo flashing. A celebrity exiting through the service garage. Snarky caption on a gossip blog. Leak, Ethan says flatly. Who had access? Short list. Security, operations, night cleaners, maintenance, Julian replies. But the metadata suggests the file came from the executive floor, where I live. Ethan puts his hand to his lips, thoughtful. So they stole from my home. No one said it was theft, Julian counters. Maybe carelessness. Ethan's face hardens. Carelessness is the word before bankruptcy. The air gets heavy. A faint scent of leather and expensive coffee drifts. Ethan, who notices everything, doesn't notice his own flicker of impatience. I want an audit of all access to my apartment in the hotel. Every entry. Every minute, he says, standing up. That could turn into a witch hunt, Julian warns. Then let it be witches. Ethan is already at the door. I want to know who's walking into my world. The security office is a blue-lit gloom, walls covered in monitors. Mosaic of camera feeds, silent. Hallways, elevators, the terrace with an empty pool and chairs aligned like soldiers at rest. The head of security, calloused hands, places a flash drive on the table. Overnight logs, Mr. Miller. You asked for your apartments. The cursor dances. Black and white screen. The clock in the corner reads 2:13. The executive floor door opens. A cleaning cart slides in, discreet. The figure is female. Upright posture. Smooth steps. Ethan recognizes the firm bun, the shoulders that carry the world without complaint. Zoom in. Ethan's voice is dry. The image tightens. Grace Williams, 44 years old, uniform spotless even in the middle of the night, enters the apartment. Gloves. Methodical movements. The silent camera amplifies each gesture. Ethan watches, motionless. She's authorized for cleaning, sir, the security chief says carefully. Routine procedure. On screen, Grace stops at the kitchen, opens the fridge. The interior light flicks on, a white glow against the black and white footage. She removes some items quickly and organizes them in a canvas bag in the cart. It's not much. It's calculated, precise. Ethan leans in, eyes of steel. Rewind 5 seconds, slow. Grace closes the fridge, takes a deep breath, and for a moment, rests her forehead against the stainless steel door as if gathering courage. Then she walks down the hallway, invisible again. She didn't touch anything of value, the guard observes. But she took food. Food. Ethan tastes the word like acid, from my apartment. Julian appears at the door, led by a hunch. Did you find anything? Ethan points at the screen. I found someone who thinks my home is a pantry. Or someone who's hungry, Julian replies calmly. Ethan glares at him, irritated. Don't romanticize this, Julian. Hunger doesn't give you a free pass. Neither does money give you a license to humiliate. The silence that follows is icy. Breathe. Let's understand before punishing. Ethan steps back slightly, as if the suggestion were a personal insult. The frozen image of Grace in front of the fridge grabs him in a place he prefers to keep locked. An old memory, an empty fridge door, a child's hand searching for anything. He blinks. The memory vanishes. I want the full footage. Copy to my phone, Ethan orders. And her address. I want to see where this ends. Julian exhales, worried. Be careful with the line you're about to cross. I draw the lines. Ethan grabs his coat. And I erase them when necessary. In the underground parking garage, Ethan's footsteps echo on the concrete like a hammer. The driver opens the door to the black SUV, the smell of new leather. The dashboard lights up. GPS ready. He types Grace W and stops, looks at his own dark reflection in the glass. A drop of cold sweat runs between his shoulder blades despite the cold air. The phone vibrates. Anonymous message. If you knew why. She takes food, you wouldn't call it stealing. Ethan closes his hand around the phone. The driver waits, eyes on the rearview mirror. Mr. Miller, shall we go? Ethan inhales slowly. Los Angeles pulses above. Distant sirens, the false promise of neon, palm trees swaying like witnesses. He selects the HR contact, ready to demand the address, and freezes at the message still glowing on the screen. Julian, he says on speakerphone, if I go to her house today, am I crossing a line? On the other side, the pause is a chasm. You won't just cross it, Ethan. You'll erase any chance of seeing the truth without power. Ethan keeps his finger hovering over the HR call button. The tension vibrates in the air like before a storm. The phone screen blinks again. New notification. Urgent. Local news outlet plans story on employee humiliation at luxury hotel. They want an interview. Today. Ethan stares at the message, the GPS waiting for coordinates, the city breathing secrets, and the decision that could save his image or destroy someone he hasn't even decided whether to see as a person or a problem. His finger moves. The car stays still. The clock ticks. Before continuing this story, I'd like to invite you to leave a quick comment telling me where you're watching from. I love knowing how far these stories travel. And if you're a fan of emotional love stories full of twists, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss a single episode and you'll help this space grow and bring you more powerful, unforgettable stories. The SUV remains parked. The clock ticks. Ethan stares at the phone and, instead of giving the address, tells the driver to turn off the engine. He rides back up in the service elevator, silent, determined to see with his own eyes. The city weighs on his shoulders. Up there, the hotel breathes power. Down below, someone is simply trying to survive. The metal doors open in the basement. The smell is of bleach, wet rubber, and forgotten coffee. Grace pushes the cleaning cart into the marble hallway, pristine like a set piece. The cold light highlights her elegant, mature features, dark, luminous skin, blonde hair tied in a tight bun. Her upright posture doesn't match someone trained to disappear. Her hands, under the gloves, bear marks from chemicals, but her walk is calm, almost musical. The head of security intercepts her, clipboard in hand. New routine. Grace. Bag and locker. Open them, please. She takes a deep breath and opens her bag. Inside, a cheap lipstick, a worn wallet, a bottle of hand sanitizer, eyes that know the dance of humiliation. Here you go. What's this? He lifts a transparent plastic container. Rice, chicken, vegetables. Rules say hotel food doesn't leave the hotel. It's food that was going to be thrown away. Her voice doesn't waver. I asked the chef from the previous shift. No note, no exit. The guard looks around, knowing there's an audience. Two maids pretend to tidy their cart. A cook, in the back, pretends not to hear. Before the tension bursts, a young waiter rushes in, out of breath. I gave it to her. There were trays left over. I wrote it down in the log. The guard closes the container without apologizing. Go ahead. But next time, note on the cart. Grace nods subtly and moves on, swallowing hard. The hallway, long, amplifies the sound of the cart and her heartbeat. In the lobby, marble gleams like a mirror. A couple of influencers poses for photos. In front of the white flower arrangement, the girl spills some juice and doesn't even notice. Grace bends down and wipes it up with a damp cloth, invisible like the cloth itself. The guy doesn't even lower the camera. Hurry up, please, he says, without looking. The girl adds, smiling at her phone. The behind the scenes of this hotel is flawless. Flawless for whom? Thank you for waiting a second, Grace says in polite English, without irony. They don't respond. The cloth holds what's left of someone's day. Ethan watches everything from the mezzanine behind the tinted glass. The suit fits perfectly on his athletic shoulders, but something in his eyes is out of place. He calls Julian, voice low. You said to look them in the eye. I'm looking. And what do you see? Julian asks. A stage I built for people who don't know how to see the floor. Ethan hangs up before hearing the answer. The shift goes on. In the upscale areas, soft piano music. Behind the scenes, freezers, steam, hurried steps. Grace walks through the cold kitchen. A sous chef places leftover. Trays on a table. Donation for the shelter, but it only leaves at dawn with an authorized van. Understood. Grace takes a smaller container with what's already been cleared and writes, with a pen, "Donation, approved by Miguel, 140. The handwriting is steady. Nothing about it asks permission to exist. On the 38th floor, the executive hallway has thick carpet that mutes everything. The air is more fragrant, more expensive. Ethan's apartment door opens with the staff keycard. The apartment looks like a magazine. Dustless surfaces, clean lines, stainless steel kitchen, palm trees against the night sky. Grace puts on fresh gloves, checks her claws and sprays. She moves like she's dancing to her own style, efficient, silent, respectful. Ethan appears in the doorway, unexpected, tall, present. "You always come into my apartment at this time?" Grace turns, keeps her back straight. "Always between guests and when you're either in a meeting or asleep. That's what's on my schedule. You're good at being quiet." He takes 2 steps in. "It's almost like you were never here." "That's the goal." Her eyes don't challenge, but they don't bow either. Leave the place as if no one passed through, and leave the fridge as if no one touched it? He fires slowly, like testing an electric fence. "I do clean the fridge. I remove expired items, organize the shelves." She points to labels with dates, everything aligned. "It's all recorded in the report. I can show you if you'd like." Ethan examines the labels. He wanted to find a mistake, but finds method. Silence grows heavy. The window shows Los Angeles like a glowing board game. He crosses his arms, looks at the bag next to the cart. "Surprise inspection earlier?" she asks. "I heard about it." "I don't like spectacles," he replies. "I like order." Order without respect becomes a stage for humiliation. It's just a threat of a voice, but he hears it. He's surprised by the courage. "You talk like someone who's not afraid of getting fired." "I'm afraid of becoming inhuman." She picks up the cloth, rings it. "Precisely. Losing your job is hard. Losing who you are kills you in silence." The sentence hits a place he's hidden his whole life. Ethan looks away. "When's your shift over?" 3:30. She checks the scratched wristwatch. "I still have 2 floors." "No delays. No delays," he repeats, unsure if he's giving an order or admiring her. The scene cracks like glass. Grace gathers her supplies and returns to the hallway. The carpet muffles steps, but not thoughts. She types quickly on her phone. A short message, and puts it away. Inside the service elevator, 2 housekeepers step in. They say the big boss is walking around. One of them whispers, "Keep your eyes open." Eyes open and heart steady, Grace replies with a faint smile, "We get through it." The doors open onto the laundry floor. Damp heat, steam rising from machines. A radio quietly plays an old ballad. The supervisor, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, hands Grace a small blue fabric bag. "You forgot this yesterday, Grace." "Thank you." She opens the bag to check. A crayon drawing slips out and falls to the floor. A simple house, 2 figures holding hands, a sun in the corner, wobbly childlike letters spelling the name G. Grace folds the paper with almost religious care and tucks it between her chest and her uniform as if her heart needed to remember a purpose. Ethan, who passed through the area just to inspect the shift or maybe to inspect himself, sees the scene from a distance, the drawing falling and being picked up again. He doesn't understand what it is, but he understands the delicacy. Something inside him yields by a millimeter. On her way back to the basement, Grace walks through the corridor connecting the kitchen to the loading dock. The air is colder. It smells like metal, gasoline, and dawn. She adjusts her badge, checks the cleared meal once more, marks it on the movement board. All set, almost. Ethan reappears at the end of the hallway, hands in his suit pockets, his silhouette outlined by the glow of the exit sign. "You always log every step?" he asks, like he's fishing for a lie. "When you're invisible, leaving a trail is the only way to prove you were there." She holds his gaze. "Want to see the board?" He steps closer, reading the steady handwriting, the times. He feels the weight of someone who lives proving their innocence before being accused. He glances again at the labeled meal container. Another donation. Yes. For who? For whoever needs it. She doesn't say more. It's not defiance. It's protection. The tension stretches. The sound of a forklift in the distance breaks the silence. A security guard turns the corner and, upon seeing Ethan, puffs out his chest. "Mr. Miller, do you need me to check something?" Ethan hesitates for one long second. Then he shifts course. "No, not today. Just record the release of the cleared item." He looks at Grace. No spectacle. She nods, a silent acknowledgement. The forklift fades. The hallway breathes again. Grace enters the elevator with the cart. The doors begin to close when the small blue bag slips out again and the corner of the drawing gets caught in the gap. Ethan takes a step forward and pulls the paper free before the rubber slices it. He looks at it. The elevator window frames Grace's face as she realizes what happened. Her eyes, wide, catch their breath. "Is this yours?" he asks. She hesitates. For a moment, as if deciding between lying and exposing her heart. "It's what reminds me not to give up." The elevator shuts with a metallic sound. Ethan is left holding the folded drawing. The paper is thin, the lines are deliberate. The question that lingers isn't about what she takes out, but what she carries inside. He grabs his phone, fingers steady, and sends a message to the head of security. No theatrical searches. Discreetly map Grace's hours this week. I want everything in writing. The reply arrives in seconds. Understood. Ethan folds the drawing again, more carefully now, and places it in the inside pocket of his blazer. He didn't manage to leave the hotel. And maybe he can't stop following her. The elevator reaches the basement. The doors open onto a dark hallway that leads to the staff exit. A shadow stretches across the floor. Two unfamiliar boots block Grace's path. The voice comes before the face. Deep, cold, short on patience. "You're Grace Williams, right? We need to talk." Now, she clutches the blue bag to her chest. The hallway seems to shrink. The clock reads 3:07. Her heart sounds the alarm. The past and the present have just collided. The clock shows 2:43 a.m. when Ethan decides not to return to his mansion in Beverly Hills. He retreats to his apartment in the hotel, a modern structure of glass and steel, as silent as a vault. The lights of Los Angeles shimmer beyond the windows, but the room stays in shadow. He sets his shoes aside, lies on the white-sheeted bed, but doesn't fully close his eyes. His body rests, but his senses stay alert. Outside, the hallway is swallowed by the typical stillness of the early hours. The soft sound of cartwheels draws near. The doorknob turns slowly, the keycard slides through the lock. The almost imperceptible creak makes Ethan hold his breath. Grace appears in the darkness, uniform pristine, posture calm. She pushes the cart to the kitchen. The soft scent of disinfectant and neutral soap fills the air. Ethan keeps his eyes half closed, pretending to sleep. Grace begins her routine, switching cloths, spraying surfaces, wiping down the brushed steel of the fridge. Nothing unusual until she pauses. The silence lasts seconds that feel like minutes. In one quick move, she opens the fridge. The white light floods the room, cutting through the shadows. Ethan, motionless in bed, watches through a slit in his eyes. His heart beats faster. He expects to see her reach for an expensive bottle of wine or a jewelry box on the top shelf. But no. She grabs fruit, 2 yogurts, and a small container of roasted chicken. She places everything gently in a canvas bag in the cart, closes the fridge, takes a deep breath, and rests her forehead for a moment against the cold metal. As if needing to gather strength, Ethan almost gets up. Anger rises in waves, but confusion takes over. Food? He thinks, silently. She risks everything. For food? Grace checks that everything is clean, adjusts the cloth on her shoulder, and leaves just as she entered discreet, without a trace. The door shuts with a soft click. Ethan opens his eyes completely. The room feels smaller, stifling. He gets up, walks to the kitchen, and opens the fridge. The fruit and chicken are gone. The wine bottles untouched. The emergency cash untouched. The top shelf untouched. She didn't take anything valuable, he murmurs quietly, as if trying to convince himself. At that moment, the intercom rings. Julian, on the other end, firm voice. Ethan, are you still up? I got an alert from the system. Your apartment sensor was triggered. I saw it, Ethan replies, looking at the floor. Want me to come up? No. He takes a deep breath. Not yet. Julian insists. Are you hiding something from me? Ethan presses the intercom button, eyes fixed on the fridge. I'm observing. He hangs up without waiting for a response. He returns to bed but can't lie down. The image of Grace taking food won't leave his mind. The dignity with which she hid the gesture. The moment she rested her forehead on the stainless steel door, as if carrying an invisible weight. He approaches the window. Los Angeles glows outside, cold and indifferent. Inside the room, a question burns like fire. Why would a woman with such firm posture risk her livelihood for so little? The silence is broken by the sound of his phone vibrating on the knitstand. Another anonymous message appears. Don't judge what you don't understand. The food missing from your fridge is life on someone else's table. Ethan clenches the phone so tightly it nearly cracks. His heart races like he's running. He looks again at the closed door, as if trying to see through it. Grace Williams, what are you hiding? Outside, in the silent hallway, a shadow still leans against the wall, watching his apartment. It's not Grace, it's someone else. The figure jots something in a notebook and disappears into the dark. Phone still vibrates in Ethan's hand, but he doesn't reply to the anonymous message. His chest burns with distrust and restrained anger. He puts on his dark coat, adjusts his watch, and decides watching cameras isn't enough. He needs to see with his own eyes. The hallway is empty when he leaves the apartment. The thick carpet muffles his footsteps, but the silence betrays every movement. His controlling instinct kicks in. He follows Grace's trail. The service elevator descends slowly down to the lowest level of the hotel. The air is thick with the smell of mold and dust, so different from the scented suites above. Through the small glass window, Ethan sees her silhouette pushing the cart. Grace walks calmly, but there's a hidden urgency in her gestures. She doesn't notice she's being followed. He stays a few meters behind, a shadow among shadows. The hallway leads to a rusty metal door that groans when it opens. Grace enters. The hotel's abandoned storage area, a forgotten space with peeling walls and stacked boxes. The smell is of old wood and moisture. Ethan holds his breath, approaching the entrance. He peeks through the gap. The scene hits him like a blow. In the dark corner, on a piece of cardboard, lies a child. A 5-year-old boy, light brown skin, big bright eyes even in the dimness. He looks so much like Grace that the resemblance is impossible to ignore. The delicate features, the shape of his face, even the timid gesture of his hands. Grace kneels before him, pulling out the food she had hidden from the canvas bag. Here you go, my love. I got chicken and fruit today. Her voice softens, so different from the firmness with which she had faced humiliation just hours before. The boy slowly sits up, rubbing his eyes. Mommy, you took a long time, I know. She gently strokes his blonde hair, just like hers. But I'm here now. Ethan's heart pounds. The word echoes. Mommy. He hadn't expected that. The child grabs the piece of chicken with his small hands, devouring it with hunger. Grace watches, eyes filled with tears she holds back so as not to frighten him. Slow down, sweetheart. There's more. Are you eating dinner with me tonight? The boy asks, voice low and full of hope. Grace swallows hard. If I stay, they'll notice, but I'll hold you until you fall asleep. She pulls the thin blanket over his body, resting her face against his. The gesture is so tender it makes Ethan's throat tighten, but his mind returns to his instincts as a boss. In my hotel. The child hidden? How has no one seen this? Indignation and confusion blend out suddenly. The boy notices something. He lifts his eyes and looks toward the half-open door. Mommy. Someone's there. Grace turns, startled. Ethan steps back, but the door creaks. The silence of the storage room is cut by the sharp sound of metal. Grace's eyes widen as they meet the tall shadow standing at the entrance. Who's there? Her voice wavers between courage and fear. Ethan steps forward, letting the dim light reveal his face. Shock sets into hers. The cleaning cart looks too small compared to the imposing figure of the billionaire. Mr. Miller? Her voice nearly breaks. What are you doing here? Ethan doesn't respond. Immediately, his eyes scan the scene, the boy on cardboard, the makeshift plate of food, the woman kneeling in protection. He feels the ground shift beneath him. This wasn't theft. It was survival. But instead of speaking, he tightens his fists, unable to decide whether to accuse or to understand. The boy hides behind Grace, clutching her uniform tightly. She instinctively opens her arms like a lioness facing a threat. If you came to take this away from us too. Her voice trembles, but doesn't break. You'll have to go through me. Ethan remains still, breathing deeply, his eyes locked on a scene he never imagined witnessing. The silence is heavy, cutting. The city sleeps outside, but inside that forgotten storage room, Ethan Miller's world has just turned upside down. The silence weighs like lead. The boy stays hidden behind Grace, small fingers clutching her uniform. Ethan, standing at the doorway, takes a deep breath, trying to make sense of the thoughts crashing inside him like thunder. Is he your son? Ethan's voice is deep, controlled, but disbelief seeps through. Grace hesitates, eyes glossy. Yes, he's my son. Ethan steps forward and the boy shrinks back further. The businessman watches him for a few seconds, unable to deny the resemblance. Big eyes, the shape of his face, the warm tone of his skin matching his mother's. Impossible not to notice. You brought a child into my hotel? Ethan's voice is low, but each word cuts like a blade. You hid this from me, from everyone. Do you understand the risk? Grace cups the boy's face in her hands, shielding him from the harshness of the words. I didn't have a choice. I have no one to leave him with, and if anyone found out, I'd lose my job. So you lied for months. Made everyone believe you were following the rules, when in fact, you were using the hotel to hide a child. Ethan begins pacing like a caged animal. His usual coldness now mixed with something new, wounded anger. Never stole anything but food that was going to be thrown away. Never. Grace lifts her chin, tears falling. Everything I did was so my son wouldn't go to sleep hungry. The boy,
frightened, tugs on her sleeve. Mommy, is he mad at you?
No, sweetheart. She hugs him tightly, voice cracking. No one's going to hurt you. Ethan watches, and something inside him cracks. He remembers his own childhood, nights when his widowed mother's fridge was nearly empty. The past he buried for decades comes rushing back with force. For a moment, the coldness disappears. But he quickly retreats into himself again, hardened. You should have asked for help. There are programs, social workers, institutions. Grace cuts him off, bitter. Institutions that take months to act while a child starves every day? Help that never comes for someone who works overnight cleaning floors you all walk across in your expensive shoes. Ethan stares at her, surprised by her courage. You deceived me, Grace. I protected myself, Ethan. His name leaves her mouth for the first time firm without titles. Because in this country, a black woman, a cleaner, a single mother doesn't get a second chance. If they found out I was keeping my child nearby, they wouldn't hesitate to throw me out. I chose the risk so I could give him at least a piece of bread. Her words echo through the empty space of the storage room, heavier than silence. Ethan clenches his fists, torn between indignation and respect. The boy, unaware of the standoff in front of him, holds up the colorful drawing he had kept in his pocket. He hands it to his mother. Look, Mommy, I made it for you. Grace smiles. Through her tears, and Ethan, watching the scene, feels something he never expected. A pang of envy at that simplicity, that pure love. He steps forward, but Grace pulls back, raising her arm like a barrier. Don't touch him. Her voice is firm, almost a shout. You've seen enough. Ethan freezes, shocked by her instinctive defense. His anger flares not because of the lie, but because he feels vulnerable in front of something he can't buy or control. He stares at Grace for several long seconds. If this comes out, you'll lose everything. She holds his gaze, eyes shimmering. If I don't do this, I lose my son. And without him, I'm nothing. Ethan's heart races. He turns to leave, but before crossing the metal door, he gives a final warning. This isn't over. The echo of the door slamming reverberates through the warehouse. Grace clutches her son to her chest, her body trembling between fear and relief. Outside, Ethan walks the dark corridor with heavy steps, feeling that something inside him has just broken and there's no going back. Morning sunlight floods the hotel lobby, reflecting off the marble floors and the fresh white flowers in the centerpiece arrangement. Employees walk briskly, important guests prepare for checkout, and journalists linger subtly on the sidewalk, waiting for any slip-up in Ethan Miller's million-dollar empire. The air carries the tension of the night before, but no one except him, and Grace knows what was discovered in that forgotten warehouse. Grace enters through the service door. Her uniform is spotless, bun carefully secured, posture as firm as ever. Only her tired eyes and deep circles betray the sleepless night. She holds her simple bag to her chest, as if carrying not just belongings, but an entire secret. Ethan is already waiting in the lobby. Dark suit, cold expression, imposing presence in front of everyone. Around them, employees pause their tasks and pretend to sort papers, but their curiosity is obvious. The scene pulls eyes like a magnet. Grace Williams, he calls out, voice deep and echoing through the hall. She stops, heart pounding, but holds her dignity. Mr. Miller. Ethan walks toward her, each step steady until he stands directly in front of her. The surrounding employees hold their breath. Last night I discovered something I can't ignore. Grace feels her eyes sting, but she doesn't look away. I know what you're talking about. You use this hotel, my company, as shelter. His voice reaches just enough for everyone to hear. You turned your workplace into a personal hideout. That's betrayal. A stir runs through the employees. Some whisper, others avoid looking directly. Grace takes a deep breath, her throat dry. I did what I had to do to protect my son. Ethan narrows his eyes. So you admit it, She says nothing. The silence speaks for her. Tears begin to fall quietly, but she stands tall, no begging. No collapsing. Julian appears from the side, clearly concerned. Ethan, this isn't the place or the way. It's exactly the place. Ethan cuts him off, voice tight with control. Everyone needs to understand that broken trust here has a cost. He signals to the operations manager, who approaches awkwardly. Escort Ms. Williams to HR. She's suspended immediately. Grace's eyes fill completely now, but she doesn't react. She clutches her bag, adjusts her uniform, and looks Ethan in the eye. I won't ask for forgiveness. I just feel sorry that you see compassion as a crime. Her words hang in the air like a silent punch. Ethan feels a tremor but doesn't show it. His face stays unreadable as she walks across the lobby, escorted by the manager. The employees part in silence. Some lower their heads in respect. Others avert their eyes in fear. The boy she tried to hide isn't there, but every step Grace takes carries his presence. When she reaches the exit, she turns one last time. Her eyes meet Ethan's, wounded, indignant, full of silent pain. That look brands itself into him like a scar that won't fade. She walks out, and the lobby breathes again, but the atmosphere stays heavy. Julian steps up beside Ethan, disappointed. You just showed strength to everyone, but you lost something priceless. Ethan doesn't respond. He just stares at the door Grace walked through, as if waiting for her to come back. But he knows that look she gave him was more final than any signed contract. Night falls over Los Angeles. From the hills of Beverly Hills, the city pulses with neon and sirens. But inside Ethan Miller's mansion, silence is almost unbearable. The glass walls reflect his solitude, cold art pieces, expensive furniture no one uses, wine bottles lined up like untouched trophies. Ethan paces, a glass of whiskey in hand. But he doesn't drink. His eyes fixed on the window only see one thing: the dignity of Grace being humiliated in the lobby, the child sleeping on cardboard, and the final look she gave him before leaving. He clenches his fist as if trying to crush the memory. She lied. She deceived me, he mutters, trying to convince himself. But the words feel hollow, powerless. He sits on the leather couch, eyes tired. A flash of childhood returns. A tiny kitchen in Detroit, the fridge nearly empty. His mother serving the last piece of bread split in 3. He was only 8. That hunger drove him to be ruthless in business, but it also stripped away his ability to feel. A sound of footsteps interrupts his thoughts. Julian walks in, without knocking, his face heavy with frustration. You could have handled this so many different ways, Ethan, but you chose the worst one. Ethan doesn't look up. I don't tolerate employees using my business to hide secrets. That's betrayal. Julian steps closer, firm. Crushing a woman who only tried to feed her child isn't justice. It's cowardice. Ethan stands abruptly, towering. Don't speak to me like that. But Julian doesn't back down. You punished her for surviving. Ethan. The silence that follows is devastating. The words hit deep, like a blade. Ethan looks away, body tense, but his heart races. Julian continues, voice lower now, almost disappointed. For years you built hotels that offer comfort to millionaires, and you couldn't stand to see that a child slept in one of them just to eat. You don't see the contradiction? Ethan shuts his eyes, trying to shield himself. But the image of Grace, head held high even with tears in her eyes, refuses to leave. I can't afford to trust anyone, he mutters, more to himself. Every time I did, I got used. Julian sighs, weary. Maybe that's why you're alone in a huge house, surrounded by things that mean nothing. Ethan opens his eyes, looks at Julian but finds no words to answer. The lawyer places the folder he was carrying on the table. The press has already caught wind of something. They're speculating about employee abuse. If they find out about the child, it'll be worse. Ethan takes a deep breath, running his hand through his graying hair. The weight of the choice he made settles heavily on his shoulders. You still have time to fix this, Julian says, calmer now. But this isn't just about avoiding a scandal. It's about recognizing the humanity you buried a long time ago. Ethan stays silent. The untouched glass of whiskey reflects the city glittering in the distance. He knows Julian is right, but admitting it would mean demolishing the fortress he spent his entire life building. Julian takes a step toward the door but offers one final warning before leaving. If you keep acting like stone, Ethan, you'll find that even stone cracks. The door closes and the mansion returns to silence. Ethan remains still, breathing deeply, haunted by two images that won't let him sleep: Grace's wounded look and the fragile smile of a hungry child. The following night arrives quietly. Ethan can't sleep. Grace's stare and Julian's words torment him. For the first time in years, he decides to leave his world of marble and glass. The black car leaves Beverly Hills behind. The streets grow narrow, with graffiti-covered walls and dim lighting. The GPS marks Inglewood. The contrast is brutal. "Shall I wait, Mr. Miller?" the driver asks. "No? Drop me here." Ethan walks down the sidewalk. The smell of simple food, barefoot children, dogs behind rusty fences. He stops in front of a small faded blue house and knocks. Grace opens the door. Her bun is loose, her face tired. The shock is immediate. "Mr. Miller? What are you doing here?" "I need to understand." She hesitates, but lets him in. The living room is modest but clean, with old furniture, worn curtains, and the smell of coffee and soap. On the wall, colorful drawings of suns, houses, and hearts. The boy runs out from the bedroom with a broken toy car. "Mommy." "Who is he?" "My boss." "Go play in your room, sweetheart." Ethan takes it all in, shaken by the contrast with his mansion. "Did your son draw these?" "Yes. He dreams of what I can't give him." "But he still dreams." He sits on the worn couch. "You live like this, and still walk with your head held high. Because dignity doesn't depend on money. I've lost everything trying to give him a better life. Slept in bus stations, ate leftovers. But I never gave up my son. And I never will." Ethan remembers his own exhausted mother and feels something break. "Grace, why didn't you ask for help?" "Because in your world, help comes with a price. And I couldn't afford it." Silence falls. The boy returns and hugs her. "Is he going to leave, Mommy, or yell at you again?" "No, my love. He just came to see." The child's gaze cuts through Ethan. He stands up, voice low. I didn't know." "Now you do." Without words, he takes in the final scene. A mother holding her son in front of a wall of drawings. He steps back out into the cold Inglewood night, feeling that everything is about to change, but unsure if he'll have the courage to face it. The silence of that night in Inglewood still echoed in Ethan days later when he made a decision. In his glass-walled office, he prepared an envelope with a check that could change Grace's and her son's life. He waited until the end of her shift at the hotel. Exhausted, with her worn bag slung over her shoulder, Grace stopped in surprise. When she saw him, "Mr. Miller?" Her voice was steady, though tense. He took a deep breath and held out the envelope. "I want you to have this. You shouldn't have to live like that, not after what I saw." Grace looked at the envelope as if it were a trap. "What is this?" "Help. Money to give you and your son a better life." She didn't open the envelope. She simply handed it back. "I don't need your pity, Ethan. I need your trust." Stunned, he repeated, "Trust? Yes. Money buys comfort, not respect. You judged me without knowing me, and now you want to silence your guilt with numbers? No. If you want to see me as more than the cleaner who walks through your hotel, look at me truthfully. That's what I need." His pride faltered. Used to seeing the world bend to his power, he had never heard a no. "You're the first person who's ever turned me down." Grace gave a faint, almost ironic smile. "Maybe because I don't want anything from you except respect." The air between them grew heavy, charged with something new. The desire wasn't about luxury, it was about her courage. And it disarmed him. "Grace." His voice came out low. "You're changing everything I believed in." She looked away. "I'm not here to change you. I just want to take care of my son. The rest doesn't matter." But it did. The spark was undeniable, intense, and dangerous. When Grace turned and walked down the hallway, Ethan realized that, for the first time, he didn't want to win a battle, he wanted to deserve it. 3 months passed, and life was no longer the same for either of them. Ethan, once driven only by figures and appearances, now revealed something rare: vulnerability. In that time, he made a bold decision, not just to right his wrongs, but to transform lives. One morning, Grace received an unexpected call. Julian, in his cordial voice, said, "Grace, Mr. Miller would like to meet with you at the main office. It's about a new project. I think you'll want to hear it." She hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. Upon entering the company's glass tower, she felt something different: looks of respect. In the large room, surrounded by modern art, Ethan was waiting with a sincere smile. "Grace," he began, rising to his feet, "I've been thinking about you, your son, and so many women who carry the world without recognition. I created a social program to support working mothers. I want you to be the manager." In disbelief, she murmured, "Manager? But I'm a cleaner. I don't have a degree." "You have something greater than a degree," he replied firmly. "Courage, integrity, and a strength I've never seen. That's what this project needs. And that's what I need in my life." Grace's heart pounded. Part of her feared this was just guilt in disguise, but his eyes showed raw honesty. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you taught me that money without purpose is empty. Because you changed how I see the world. And how I see you." Tears threatened to fall, but she held her composure. "Ethan, I'm not a woman of luxury. All I have is my truth." He smiled gently. "And that's exactly what I want." In the silence, a restrained feeling bloomed. Ethan didn't try to buy her, he simply held out his hand. Grace looked at him, then at the eyes that once judged her and now admired her. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. "Maybe it's time to believe," she murmured. In that simple gesture, they broke the barriers of age, color, and social class. Love was born there, quiet but unbreakable, like a flame that withstands storms. Ethan, eyes glistening, realized he had never felt so rich. But fate, unpredictable as always, still held trials that would test that love in front of everyone. And that was our story. What did you think of this plot full of emotion, twists, and discoveries? Leave your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments. I'd really love to know how much this story moved you. If you liked it, don't forget to like, share with someone special, and subscribe to the channel to follow more stories. And before you go, I've saved another story even more intense and emotional that will surely touch your heart. Don't miss it.